No, I am really excited to be with you guys this morning. This morning at my house, we had a meltdown. It's superhero day at daycare, and one of us didn't get a mask. So um, I did get over it, but no, it's always an adventure over here at our house in the morning. And but I'm happy to be here with you guys. And today I wanted to share a story that has recently happened. In the lot in my life kind of, but God's given me the opportunity to be a part of this story. But really it's a story of one of the students that's in my high school small group. I've been serving at Crossings Community Church in the high school ministry for just about 8 years, 8 or 9 years now. And it is exhausting. Yes, I know you were thinking that. Um, but God has been super faithful and just blessed my socks off in the last month of getting to see some fruit from my labors and from some of these students. And I wanted to share with his permission. I got his permission, but the student gave me the opportunity to share what God's been doing in his heart. So I'm going to do that this morning, but also, we're going to talk about what we can learn from it. And especially as we go into this, we're in the middle of this time of Lent and preparing for Resurrection Day. So I'm going to share this story. Again, this young man he's currently a high school senior, and I've known him and his family for the last 8 years actually. So his brother was in my previous group, but so this student he grew up in a different state. He grew up in Georgia, and his dad is a pastor. And as a lot of kids that grow up in a home where the dad or mom are working at the church, he was always at church. And his faith was just kind of based on, well, my dad's a Christian and he's a pastor, so I guess that kind of makes me grandfathered in. And it wasn't really his relationship with the Lord. Starting in sixth grade, this student uh, got into pills. He started taking these pills to help him pass exams. And this is a thing that unfortunately kind of continued through his life up until just a few months ago, where he was dependent on these pills and other substances to either help him perform in the classroom, or most of it got to a point where it was just helping him numb the pain of the struggles that he was going through. Something else that's really important about this student that you need to know is that he's a wrestler. And I have not picked a fight with him because of that specifically. He would whoop me and just throw me all over the floor. But that is something that he's very passionate about, and he's really good at it too. He has multiple offers to go and to wrestle collegiately. And so that's something that not only is he passionate about it, but God's given him the gift, and he's just really good at it. But growing up, he went to school. He didn't surround himself with the best company. He surrounded himself with bad influences, like many of us have in our past as well. And as recent as just even 5 months ago, things had gotten really dark for him. He got to a point where he was taking prescription pills and chasing that with liquor. And he got to a point where he told us that he was at peace with not waking up the following morning. And I know that's a terrifying thought. That's something, as his small group leader, I was surprised to hear that was just something that he was going through, and I had no idea that it was that bad. I knew that he had struggles and things weren't all the way right, but I didn't know to that extent. But God's been faithful. Again, this is his senior year of high school, and he's wrestling. It's a big part of his life, and it always has been. So just about a month ago, he was coming up on the regionals for wrestling, and he found out that because he had delayed putting in some of his assignments, he was ineligible. They pulled him out of class one morning and said, "Hey, like, you're ineligible. You can't wrestle at regionals." And just like that, his wrestling career was over. Um, I don't know a lot about the wrestling recruiting world, but he was telling us that a lot of his college offers are contingent on how well he performs in regionals and or at state. And so getting that rug pulled out from under him just kind of meant he's done. Like, if he can't go to regionals, then there's no way he's getting an offer to go and wrestle at the collegiate level. And um, this is a big deal for him, just to have that stripped away just in an instant. He did what he could, and him and his parents went and spoke to the school and pleaded with them. And essentially, he told me that they begged them to let him turn in his assignment and maybe change his grade and let him wrestle, because again, it's his senior year, it's his last year, his last opportunity to do that. But they held firm to their decision in holding him accountable for his actions of not doing his schoolwork, and rightfully so. I think I think they made the right choice. But so needless to say, he's torn up. I know for myself, specifically in high school, when I got frustrated, it wasn't a pretty sight. And I think me and this guy we're very similar in that way. And he explained to us just how frustrated he was and how he was just filled with anger. He said that he just, more than anything, wanted to go, and just going to be candid, he wanted to go and punch his teacher in the face. And he was just so frustrated with this guy, and just so frustrated at the situation that he ultimately put himself in. So that happened on a Thursday. The night before, that's when we do our youth group. And the night before, we were wrapping up a series called The Fast Life, where each week we take different things that we fast. We started with meats and sweets. So for a whole week, we didn't eat meats or sweets. And then we moved into streaming. So no television, no Netflix, nothing like that. And then the third week is social media. We all fasted social media. And so, but this week we kind of had a wrap up week, and we had a worship night, and they asked the students to write something on a note card. They asked them to write, like, where do you want to see God move in your life? How do you want to see, what are some things you want to God help? What do you want God to help you with? And this student wrote, persevere through trials, on his card. Now, as normal high school students, and I'm sure most of them did this, typically what he would do is he would write on that card, put it in his pocket, and then when he's leaving the building, he'd throw it in the trash and just disregard it. But this time it was different. He wrote on that card, he stuck it in his pocket, and he forgot to throw it in the trash like he normally would. So that's a big, we'll come back to that in just a second. But needless to say, when that final decision came down for him that he was ineligible to wrestle and his wrestling career was over, he was torn up. Like I said, he was very frustrated, and just, he couldn't focus on anything else. And the school they were willing to let him just, okay, like, take the day, go home, come back tomorrow, and we'll move forward. But so he started driving home. And as he's driving home, he's just sitting at this, he's sitting still at a stoplight, and this card falls out from the top of his visor. He just said that, he didn't hit a bump. There's no wind, no air or anything flowing through the car. He's just sitting there, and this card falls out, and he looks down at it, and it says, persevere through trials. And that's that card that he wrote the night before, and that he would typically throw it away. And he was just like, well, that's weird. Like, how did that get there? One, and then why did it just fall on my lap? That's super strange. And so he gets home. This is all happening in the course of one day. He gets home, takes a nap, tries to kind of, relax and collect his thoughts and his nerves and his feelings, and he wakes up and he decides, I'm going to go work out, and that'll help get some of his frustration and anger out. And as he's scurrying around and trying to find his keys, he reaches in his pocket And he doesn't find his keys, but he pulls out that card again, and all he sees is the word persevere. And God has really got him thinking, like, whoa, that not only do I still have this card, but now I've seen it twice today of all days. And then he gets this nudge as he's getting in his car to go work out. He gets this nudge to listen to some worship music, and he's explained. I know the music that he typically listens to, and it's not worship music at all. So this is different for him. He feels this nudge to go to get in his car, turn on the worship station, and so he does it. And the first song that comes on is "Come to the Altar." And he's just at this point just like, oh my god, like what is happening? He's just blown away. And so he just kind of lets it play. He listens to that song, and he listens to the next song, and he actually ends up just working out to worship music again, which is something that he doesn't listen to that music ever. So this is something new and something different. The next day at school, he's in that class with that teacher that gave him that failing grade. And the teacher, from what I understand, doesn't ever play music in his classroom either. But this day he decided to. So he turns on the radio station, song comes on, it's "Come to the Altar." And now the student's just like almost in tears. It's like, this is just super weird. This can't be a coincidence. Something's happening. And this student, one thing that we've talked about with him is that he's never felt like his like God moment, his big kind of breakthrough. So things are kind of starting to swirl in his head and in his heart. And he goes up to this teacher who the previous day he wanted to punch in the face, and tells him this story that I'm telling you up to this point. And this teacher just starts breaking down. He just starts crying in front of this student, and he's just so happy to hear about this. And it come to find out this teacher's dad has a lot of health problems, and he's been in a rough spot, and that kind of bled into him being a little bit more hard, a little harder on the student. And they have this really sweet moment in where God is clearly honored. Fast forward just a little bit, during that day, the student gets another invitation, if you will, down to the principal's office, and come to find out that teacher had decided to change his grade, give him another chance, thus making this student eligible again for the wrestling regionals. And we later realized that this whole story is the student's God moment. Like, this is his big breakthrough. Oh my goodness, like God is real thing. And it's a really cool story. He's telling us this story, me and my co-leader, this story at Brahms, and I'm sitting there with this huge thing of ice cream that only cost $2, and I'm almost crying in Brahms. I'm a 34-year-old grown man sobbing, eating ice cream. But it's just such a sweet story, and I'm glad to say that now today, this student is just so on fire for the Lord. He is now confident in his faith. It's not a faith of his dad or his mom, his grandparents, or anything like that. It's the faith that he knows, the feeling, and not just the feeling, but the relationship that he has with Jesus because of the moment that he had with him, and the way that God provided for him through this. Well, what's really cool about this story, and we all have similar stories, I think, like God took away his idol of wrestling. He took it away. He stripped this student down to where he really didn't have anywhere else to go. He didn't have anything to hold on to. And that's what God does, right? He gets us to a point where he's all we have. And that's what happened with this student. And that's what happens with us. And guys, as we are in the middle of this Lent season, like that's what Lent is about. Lent is about putting away our idols that we create and we run to instead of the Father. And it's about focusing our hearts and our minds on Jesus in the upcoming celebration of the resurrection. I've been reading, doing a Bible in a year plan, like many of you guys, and going through Exodus was just such a really cool thing for me to do. I honestly couldn't tell you the last time I read that story beginning to end, and it's just really neat to think about how easy. I say easy. It took a lot of convincing for Pharaoh to let the Israelites out of Egypt, but once they got out of Egypt, it took 40 years wandering in the desert for God to get the Egypt out of the Israelites. And that's again, like that's the story. That's what Lent is it's this time where we can prepare and purify ourselves in celebration of the risen King. So I just have a few reflection questions for us and things I want you guys and myself to reflect on today and in the upcoming season as we again prepare for Easter and Resurrection Sunday. Is what's in your way? What's in our way of experiencing God? What are we putting? How are we setting ourselves up for failure and not spending that time with the Lord? And how do we need to be purified? What things need to be taken away from us? What, for this student, it was wrestling. And so what is it for you? What is it for me that we need to be purified by? What do we need to take out of our life to fully have that relationship with the Lord? And another reflection question is, how can we use the remainder of Lent to prepare our hearts for Resurrection Sunday? What can we do practically? I know for me, getting off of social media is a big thing. That's a huge distraction for me. For some of you, it might. I don't know your stories, but that's mine. And so we all have these things that we are putting in the way of our time with the Lord. And so I think it's really good to think about and reflect on, like, what's in the way and how do I get back, how do I get that out of my routine or out of my life, so I can focus on the Lord. And I've always heard Lent as or fasting in general as a making space to hear from God. And so what can you do today to make space for God? And I think we've all done a great job so far this morning of making this time to be together and hear this kind of really good, kind of good devotional, but and then this time of prayer. But what else? What can we do throughout our day and our week to make space and to hear from God? Guys, that's all I have for you. I was really excited to share that story about what God's doing in the lives of this student in particular, but just also in students and showing us that God is still active today and he's working in lives and all around us. So thanks for letting me share. I really enjoy getting to share this story, and I'm going to pray, and then Brent, I guess, can break us up into prayer groups. So God, just thank you so much for today. As Adrian prayed, Lord, just thank you for waking us up. Even it's a beautiful day here in Oklahoma, and we're just grateful that we get to be a part of it. Lord, I thank you for the ways you have moved in my life and each of the lives of these men on this phone call. And Lord, I thank you for the way that you've moved in this student's life just in the last few months even. God, thank you that you never give up on us and that you love us enough to send us to the desert that we may see you and love you. And so God, I thank you for these men. Thank you for today. And it's in the name of Jesus that I pray. Amen.
Amen.